What should I invest in for my first property? Let's take a look. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the endless options of being in real estate? A lot of new investors are looking for the perfect rental property before they start. They're wondering about LLCs, they're wondering where they should invest. There's all these different options. The reality is the type of property that you get and where you invest actually could differ from person to person. So what might be an ideal first property for one person may or may not be the same solution that is best for what you're looking for. And in fact, where you should invest and what you should invest depends on a lot of different things that you might not be thinking about. First of all, it depends on where your resources are. It also depends on what your expertise are and what season of life you might be in. Let's take a look at what are some of the things that we should consider when we talk about our first rental real estate. So what we want to know is, do you have a lot of cash or are you limited in cash? For example, if you don't have a lot of cash or liquidity that's sitting around, then it might make sense to invest in a property where you can put in some sweat equity. So one example might be a house hack. Let's say you buy a property that's going to be your primary home, you move in, and when you're in there, you fix it up to increase the value of it. Now, what's really amazing on the tax side is if you live in that property for at least 2 years, you can then sell the property and exclude a hefty amount tax-free. If you're a single person, you can exclude up to $250,000 of gain from taxes. If you are married, you can exclude up to $500,000 of that from taxes. And better yet, if you wanted to, after living in there for 2 years, you can actually move out and turn it into a rental property, and you can rent it out up to an additional 3 years. And if you sell within that time frame, you could still use the primary home gain exclusion. That's a really great first property for a lot of people who maybe are limited in cash. A similar way to do house hack is to look at a duplex. Let's say you buy a duplex where you live in one unit and you rent out the other unit. What might work out really well is if in the second unit that you rent out, maybe you rent it out as a short-term rental. Because it's part of your primary home property, it makes it very easy for you to self-manage the property. And if you meet one of the material participation hours requirements, guess what? You can even create rental losses through write-offs and depreciation and be able to use some of those losses against your W-2 and other income as well. So a really amazing way for you to get into your first property that's partly your home and then another unit that's a rental and create some pretty massive tax savings from it. Now, another asset to consider for your first rental property if you have limited cash is to look at the BRRRR strategy. The BRRRR is the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. It's a really great way for you to create forced appreciation on a specific property. What we love about the BRRRR strategy is that when you buy the property, you get to take depreciation. When you rehab it, that just means more depreciation, tax write-offs. When you refinance the property, guess what? The money that you pull out from a refi is actually not taxed currently. When you reinvest into other rental properties, you can actually write off the interest expense as well. So a really great strategy to start building your portfolio, but also create some potentially massive tax savings as well. Now, you might be in another scenario where you have less time on your hand. If you're someone who's busy at your job, busy with your family, busy with your business, then maybe a turnkey property would be a better fit for you. Turnkey properties are great because the seller typically has done a lot of significant remodels to the property. So the property is ready to go, and some of those are even already rented out. If you find the right turnkey providers, they also sometimes provide property management as well, or if not, maybe they can have some local management options for you. So for those of you who do not have a lot of time in dealing with rental properties, starting off with a turnkey rental could be a safe and efficient way for you to get into real estate. And the good thing about that is for turnkey properties, a lot of turnkey providers have a portfolio of property. And so if you're someone who's looking to scale quickly, turnkey properties could be a solution to help you get there with little time needed on your end. Now, similarly, if you are someone who has more liquidity and assets, but you don't have a lot of time, then real estate syndications are also a really great way for you to get into real estate, even if it's your first deal. What I love about syndications is that you can invest your money into a syndication or a fund where the fund goes out and acquires usually larger properties, whether it's apartments or mobile home parks or self-storage. There are a lot of different options within the syndication space. And so that allows you to be truly passive with respect to your real estate. In real estate, we always talk a lot about the concept of leverage. And typically when we talk about the word leverage, we usually use it in the context of loans, right? So I'm going to borrow money from the bank, I'm going to borrow money from investors, and I'm able to leverage other people's money. What I love about turnkey properties and syndication real estate is that not only are we able to leverage money, but we're also able to leverage time and expertise. In other words, the seller who rehab the turnkey rental, we're able to leverage their expertise in doing all of that work. If I want to get into a syndication deal, I'm able to access the knowledge and the expertise of the syndicator and all of their team who have taken down this large real estate deal. Usually for syndication stuff, these are going to be larger assets, typically better performing assets than maybe what I as a newer investor could be able to do on my own. So those are all some really great options to consider: where you're investing, what market cycle it's in, and also what season of life you are in, all impact what type of real estate should be your first property or your next property. For me as an investor, when my husband and I first started out, we didn't have a whole lot of money, but we sure had a lot of time. And so at the time, we were looking more into house hack as well as forced appreciation, like the BRRRR strategies. But as time went on, we started to build our accounting practice, and that's where a lot of our time is going. We started to have kids, and so then there was a shift in our season of life where we were no longer having a lot of time that was available, but instead we had more resources in terms of liquidity and funding that's available. And so it was a natural transition for us to shift some of our focus away from continuing to build these forced appreciation real estate and getting more into the syndication side of things. There's not a perfect type of real estate for anyone to give in. You have to be looking at where your resources are, where your bottlenecks are, and then from there, defining at this specific type what type of real estate would make the most sense for you. All right, if you like this, be sure to visit my website at keystonecpa.com to get free access to more tax saving tips in our tax savings toolkit. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more tax savings tips.